You're going to notice that today HP is missing, but in his stead is nobody. Um, how's everybody doing? How are you doing, Mark?
All right. Kind of tired, but
Tired.
yeah, the winter
Winter
weather,
sleeps.
winter Toronto weather
It's
is slowed the body down.
the old internal clock. It seems really strange, actually. Our weather's been. We're actually starting a podcast talking about the weather.
Yeah, let's just do more small talk, Matt.
Everybody loves small talk. It's actually been really wonky. It's been like up and down, cold and warm. Like it's like pretty warm today, but it's supposed to go like negative like 19 or something. And
Right.
so and then it'll go like warm again. I don't know. Anyway, um,
Yeah, we always one thing I've observed is actually this isn't really a pattern, but like last year, it was kind of a slow period for us in terms of like development. Like we sort of had the winter update, like the Foundation of War update, where you guys update all the towns. We came back, and there was not like huge movement for at least a couple of months. Actually, it's kind of funny because there's a almost like a blank period, and I'm making a conscientious effort this year to make sure that like even though it's tough, but to really try to move the needle and not waste any time, even in these cold early months of the year when everyone just is kind of like wants to hibernate.
these are actually the times where we do a lot of prototyping. I've noticed, and then like a lot of stuff ends up
Yeah.
just getting like implemented later.
Although
It's
I
very
can't,
interesting.
although I can't say this is a pattern because the year before is when we added World Conquest to the game, and that was like a real like crazy start to the year. It's like
When did we add it? Was it like in February? Or
I think it was
something?
February of 2018 because we wanted to do it before the year end, but then we knew it was too much. So then we just said, screw it, let's just do it in the new year. And then we kind of like rushed out an early version of it, and it was a lot of work. It was very tough. So yeah.
Well,
Anyways, I don't know why we talked about any of that, but let's
but
just move on.
the last update was kind of interesting, if not like sort of a little smaller than the previous one.
Yeah,
I
well,
think.
our the thing the continuing theme is that we really want to push more to completion, like for these features that we introduce, sort of start to like drill down more instead of just latching on to the next thing, because it's always so easy, especially when everyone's like screaming and shouting about the next thing that we need to move
Yeah.
on to fix. This time we're making a conscientious effort of saying, no, we're actually going to make sure that we finish what we consider the core parts of the base building update or the trench warfare before we move on. Even though I know people are waiting for us to like move on, we really want to be more like disciplined this time. So that's what we've been doing. And there's still one more trench warfare update, which should be coming in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to talk about some of the cool stuff that is going to be coming then. And after that, I would say like the core features of base building and trench warfare are in. It doesn't mean we're not going to add new content. We actually want to set things up in a way that we can continue to add new content. But in terms of what we like see as like the foundation,
It should be easier for like like interstitial content to be added by like pretty much anybody once this is all
Yes.
done, as
Yeah.
opposed to right now we need a lot of piping in order to
we're building
do
the
any of that.
systems, right?
Yeah.
So like the systems will be built, and then we just have to add in content, and we're always going to add features and tweak things, but in terms of
All right. Well, you know what? Since HB's not here, we're gonna try to go through the community highlights because it's usually him who is the manager of this part. So Mark and I are gonna do our best, but I don't know if we've even seen any of
no,
any
it'll
of
be
this
all a
before.
surprise. Cool.
So let's move on. Very weird, like hosting and then like also having to do stuff. Okay, I haven't seen these.
No, I have not seen these ones.
I feel like we got punked with a bunch of anime.
Oh,
week.
really?
Yeah, I was looking at it.
Okay, yeah.
So these are really good. I think the one on the left is like extremely well rendered. And then a little date in a tank. I guess that would happen. That's kind of a neat idea.
Well, it's kind of funny because the right one has more of the Foxhole like mood in a weird way.
Yeah, no, I mean,
it's
like,
more moody.
It's
I guess.
potential. It's got potential to actually happen in our world. So
Spaghetti. Is there spaghetti in
maybe
Foxhole?
maybe not spaghetti, but
Wine.
yeah, for sure. There's lots of wine.
Okay.
Wine's easy to make. Are you kidding?
Is spaghetti officially part of the lore, Matt? I don't know.
Let's say no, just so that this stays fan art
Right.
instead of.
What else does he have in his bag there?
You don't want to know. The one on the left is pretty cool. I really
Moving
like
on.
that. No, I wanted to talk more about the one on the left.
You want to talk about the left?
I actually do think the rendering is like really really good. It's got this this style of like like early PS2 like marketing art, which is like that's a compliment because that stuff was like really highly stylized.
Early PS2, like what's an example of a game?
Like
Early
a lot of
PS2.
like JRPGs from that era.
Right.
Had that this kind of like look where it's like a lot of gradients and then like kind of heavy like outlines and stuff like that.
It's an elf warden. I just noticed that.
Yeah, it's an elf warden.
I didn't notice that.
But it's very very cool.
Cool.
That's all I wanted to say. Like I want to talk very seriously about the warden field surgeon, but it's very
Wait,
hard.
is this? Hold on. Is this done by the same person?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. Because it's like, I guess it's like not exactly the same.
It's not the same.
Style.
It's a different uniform. This is like I think a totally different uniform.
Right, but
unless
like
maybe we
that-
did see this last week.
But the one on the left was like, it's been part of this like series of posts, and they all kind of are posed the same way and the style the same way. But the one on the right is not in that same.
Wait, so is it the same artist? Hold on a second.
Maybe Max messed up.
Is this the same artist, KFC?
I'm gonna blame Max.
Because I'm not sure they.
Well, in any case, I think the field surgeon is a really cool uniform.
Okay, it is the same artist apparently.
Right.
So.
I mean, I think these are both really, really cool. Actually, we have been working on prototyping some of the uniform sort of like system, like some of the early work on the system side for the uniforms. And if you see one of the mods, then you can sort of see where those tests are going. Just kind of like speaking of, and every time I see these uniforms, I'm like, man, this is gonna be cool once we eventually get to working on that more full time, right?
Yeah, I'm excited about it, and I guess I'll just say that this artist has a lot of range.
What?
This artist has a lot of range.
Right. I like the mustache, by the way.
Yeah, I feel like all wardens are now.
Is that going to be
part of the uniform?
You wouldn't even be able to see a mustache.
I mean, if it was like that, you would.
I guess so.
Just let it just be a big old whiskers coming out.
Selected from veterans of multiple campaigns, warden medics are valued more for their experience of the horrors of battle than for their medical expertise.
Probably because no one has medical expertise.
So these are like old, grumpy warden medics, basically, that wear aprons.
Do they just like cauterize wounds and say you're good to go? Like,
I don't know. Anyways, let's move on.
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
I
really like that truck on the right.
Yeah, I've seen that truck. That's
that actually made me, when I saw that, I was thinking about it this weekend. I was playing Logi Saturday night, and I'm like, man, I want a faster truck, right? And that is like somewhere in between a utility vehicle and a truck.
Yeah.
And the thing that I thought of first was this, because this looks faster than the trucks that we have, and it looks slower than, faster than the trucks, but slower than the than the utility vehicle. It's the first thing I thought of, and I was like, this is kind of cool. I mean, I guess it's kind of like the relic truck. It's like a small version of the relic truck.
Well, it says like it's a mechanic truck.
Yeah.
So I would assume it'd be used to like I don't know, help repair vehicles faster or something.
Right. But I remember when this was posted on our internal Discord, a couple of you guys were like, "Wow, this is a really good drawing."
Yeah, I mean, listen, cars are hard. Like mechanical things in general are hard to draw. It
Like
takes,
the perspective is not easy to get right. Right?
yeah,
Is that
yeah.
sort of-
It takes a certain kind of eye for it. Like, this is not the kind of thing I would ever try to even get this amount of detail on. I would just fudge it wherever I could to get it like looking like a car and then move on. And the perspective is really good. Just the details, and it's like two different angles too. So it's not even like the same perspective, and it still looks like the same vehicle. So
Right.
that's pretty tough.
That's really cool. I hope we get to see more. Maybe some tanks or something.
Let's talk about these other two on the left. I don't know what they are. I think the one on the top looks almost like more like a modern, like a Metal Gear Solid version of like a colonial soldier or something.
Like a high tech. Oh no! Wait a minute. Is that?
I think it's
Or is it
supposed
like-
to be like a.
It's not like scuba gear. No, it's
I
not.
think
Is it? I don't
looks
know.
almost like a pilot or something,
Like a pilot. Sorry, not scuba
but
gear.
still like a more modern. I think like the helmet and stuff looks really modern to me.
Right.
But that's why it reminds me of like a villain from Metal Gear Solid or something.
Right. Guess that's it.
I guess that's it. Well, let's talk about the what is coming up next. Mark, I think this is.
I feel like without HB, it's just such a lackluster community highlight section.
Well, it's tough because like I think we both thought HB was going to be here today.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
so he wasn't, and so I'm blaming him entirely.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that like. I like it when he presents it to us because then it's like, oh, that's what that is.
Yeah.
But here we just have to guess because we weren't prepared ahead of time.
Well, let's move on to the stuff that we know how to do.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
You were very excited about this
I was very excited about this.
before the stream.
So yeah, what I'm trying to do more and more, which we started last time, is to try to give you guys a better picture of where we're at and a closer look at the pipeline. I was talking about the development pipeline last time, and my goal is to hopefully make it easier for you to understand where things are, so that and how long certain things take, and so on and so forth, so that hopefully it'll paint a clearer picture of where we are in like development and help answer some of those questions that sometimes pop up. So right now we are working on update 34. So this is the third update in the trench warfare season, I guess you can kind of think of it as. We don't actually call it seasons, but that's how I think about it in my mind.
But what if?
But so basically we're rounding out the trench warfare features that we started back in December, and that's what you're going to see in update 34. And in terms of logistics, there's going to be some things coming in the spring update, but something looks missing from these slides. Hold on a second. Are these the right set of slides? No, they must be.
It has to be.
Because I made some changes that aren't in here. Anyways, I'll
Well,
power through it, and hopefully it won't be too messy.
If there is something that you missed, you can just post it online later.
Sure. But in any case, spring update coming in March, April is when we're going to be doing more logistics changes. But I wanted to set expectations. This is not going to be like an earth-shattering, sweeping revamp of Logi or anything of that sort. We're going to be targeting very specific things and trying to address specific issues. And it's going to take a lot of like iteration to get certain things right. I actually think it's going to... We're sort of going to be seeing Logi changes from actually probably like from now all the way until like summer, to be quite frank. And it's not going to all come in one huge drop. Even in update 34, there's a couple of like, I wouldn't say they're Logi like features. They're more like quality of life and tools that should help support Logi gameplay. So even some of that's going to start coming up in update 34. That's arriving in a few weeks. But yeah, spring update will be after that. And that will, that will sort of be the end of the trench warfare season. So this is another thing that I'm doing is I get a lot of questions about things in the roadmap, and I just want to answer them here so that I don't have to answer them constantly. What happened to the fuel station? We showed this probably about like, I don't know, a third of a year ago or something of that sort. So this thing is still planned. It's not gone, but it's on the back burner while we figure out other logistics features. So I think like we kind of knew that we weren't going to be working on more logistics features until at least the spring update. So we didn't want to just like shove this in without getting the larger picture first. So this one is still being worked on, and I think that the oil rig platform structure is also filed under this same category. It's still planned, it's still coming, but probably not in the next month or two, at least.
The model is actually in the home region.
Of the fuel station.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So you've kind of seen it.
Right. What happened to the emplacements, deployables, carrying wounded players, and other trench warfare features? So we kind of over planned on some of this stuff, but it's all still coming, and I'm going to walk through where each one of these features are at. Emplacements. This is the octagon-shaped trench thing. So where this is at is the content's ready, the code's ready. There's no major blockers on this one. We just have to have time to like integrate the content into the game, right? So this one, excuse me, what is going on today?
The weather. We talked about it already.
Allergy season or something. So this one is likely, hopefully coming for the spring update. It's still there. I think we're really excited about this one, and it's definitely not gone anywhere. The deployables. So this one's interesting. We actually had it working. Like the first deployable, it was fully functioning. This was the infantry support gun, and we showed this off on a stream last year. And there were some like weird corner cases with respect to like mounting it on certain surfaces and trying to get that mounting logic right. In some cases, it looked kind of strange. It was too tall, or just wasn't exactly where it should be. So we just need to find time to go back and figure out how to solve those problems. But none of these are like unsolvable problems. And again, I think this is just something that we need a bit more time on. But I think that like, I don't know, if we get lucky, there's a chance we might see this one of them in update 34. But I don't want to promise anything, because I do know that those problems weren't trivial to solve. Right. And finally, the carrying wounded soldiers or wounded players. So right now we have carrying the critically wounded soldiers, which is the
Like a downed
player that you can bring to the hospital and rest them, heal them back into soldier supplies.
You mean harvest them?
Harvest.
Just say it.
I don't want to use that word, Matt. But this is coming. So we have a prototype of this working. I actually worked on it myself, and this is working. But there's just like a bunch of more technical issues that have to be sorted out with this one, right? So, anyways, the summary of all this stuff is that it's not gone, right? We're still working on all this stuff. We just need more time, right? So,
With time comes all sorts of new things. I had a question and I just fucked. That's why I switched over and I can't fucking remember what I was going to say. So,
sure.
You know what? Let's move on.
Cool.
It'll come back to me.
This thing I'm not going to dwell too much on. We showed it last time, but it just sort of gives you a rough idea of the schedule. So I want to move on.
It's just there. It's there to be there.
Yeah, features in progress. So this is the first thing we want to show today, which is the signpost. This is one of those tools / quality of life features that it's not like a Logi feature, but it might help with Logi. It might help with certain other parts of the game. Basically, it's a new structure that allows you to leave messages behind for other players in the world, right? So we have sort of like map posts for leaving messages for players at the map level, and then now this is sort of the equivalent of a map post, but you leave it in the actual world itself, right? And
I've been very excited about this feature.
exactly, we purposely made it as like a sandbox feature. We have a couple ideas on how it can be used, like, you know, as an example, if you leave behind a piece of equipment like a truck or a concrete mixer or something like that. Right now, sure, there's issues. Maybe someone might come along and like steal your truck or something of that sort. But a lot of times people might even just take something just because they don't even know, right?
Yeah.
And this will at least take care of those cases, right? The cases where someone's like, well, I don't know if I should take this truck or not. I kind of need one. I'll just take it, right? This will at least help those cases. I know I've been in that situation so many times where,
It's like, why is this here?
well, I've been on like both ends of it, right? Like I see something and I'm like, man, this truck looks like it's abandoned.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
is
Like,
it just sitting here, or has someone have they parked it, etc.?
how long have they been gone? You know, all these questions. And these signposts will help with that because it not only allows you to write a message that will show up when another player walks close by, but it'll also show the timestamp of when it was written, right? So if somebody writes a message like, don't take my truck, and it was only written like half an hour ago, you probably, you know, shouldn't take it, right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's a sandbox feature, so there's other things that players might do. Like you know, players might want to write their own tutorials. Maybe in the Logi hubs, they might use this as a way to talk to some of the other Logi players.
Yeah, like just organization, or like these boxes have these things in them, and they're designed in such a way that like you can get a pretty decent distance away from them when it pops up. So like, and you can't build them so they overlap. So it'll be pretty useful for like organizing.
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah.
I was just gonna say for
Sorry,
organizing like different boxes of materials and things like that, because it almost can't be confusing at that point.
Yes, and there's a couple of like extra rules in place to help with this. One is, like you're saying, Matt, you can't build them too close, so you know it'd be hard to spam. And also it has the upvote system that the map posts have.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's cool.
If you downvote it, the sign isn't going to be around for long. But if you keep on upvoting over time, it'll sort of extend its lifetime, right?
Some people are asking, just because we're on topic, whether or not the enemy can read it.
Right now they can, but we could probably add in you know, a switch for that.
It's just you can't read this language.
What languages do they speak, Matt?
Listen, I don't have that answer off the top of my head.
But anyways, another thing is that when you're using your weapon, these messages will hide so that they won't be like annoying if they're placed in the middle of like a battle zone or things of that nature. And you know, we'll test this out in the dev branch, and certainly we'll get some feedback on it.
I think it's probably one of the coolest things that we've had just from a sandbox perspective. I like also, I just want to like gush about it for a second. I like also, full disclosure, I didn't really work on this feature. I like that it just pops up too.
Yeah.
That it's not something that you have to like click, because that will make confusion less. Like it's like, oh, I put a sign there. Oh, I didn't see it. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, you had to have, because
Right.
it's like impossible.
And it doesn't have any collisions on it, so you can't use it to block things. In case that was a concern.
Can you use it in a vehicle?
Can you use it in a?
Like,
mean?
will you see it in a vehicle?
Yeah. Yes.
You obviously probably can't edit the message. And it does cost materials, correct? It's
Yes.
not free.
It's not free, for sure not.
okay.
No, we can't. Free means spam. Cool. Let's move on to
Great.
the next thing. Bunker infrastructure. So
This is cool too.
This is a big feature. This is sort of the end of the I'm trying to find the right phrase, Matt. It's what
The
we've been building towards.
Yeah, we've been building towards this. This is the coup de grace.
Yeah, right. So this is like these fortresses that players can now build, especially with the trench connector piece. It's actually easier and possible to build out these larger bunker trench networks. We're adding this new feature called infrastructure that basically it does a couple things. I'll walk through them. These are basically special modifications. So if you know right now, there's modifications like a firing port, a door, and things like that you can build into your bunkers. But this is special modifications that are used to progress the tech of your bunker, right? And specifically, a bunker network, which is always associated with a bunker base, which the bunker base we talked about on the last stream, right? So basically you build a bunker base, you build a network around it, and the upgrades you can use in that network are determined by how far you've progressed your infrastructure at that base, right? At that network. But how you increase your infrastructure, so how you can unlock more of these things is if you build these infrastructure modifications, right? So these are things like bunk beds, lockers, tables, and like desks, because it also serves another purpose. They're also used to visually customize the bunker, right? So when we first started working on this feature, we were super excited about like the idea that players can build out this crazy like underground base and actually make it look like a base, right? Make it look like it's lived in. Make it look like there could be soldiers that are stationed there, right? And that was part of the fantasy of that the base builder can try to live through, right?
It's like you can build your own little like underground fortress that you and a bunch of randoms or you and your clan or whatever will feel like you actually have like a base.
Yeah, like this is your home.
It's like you can call a bunk and
Yeah.
be like, this is my bunk.
Yeah.
And
So
just that's cool to me. I think that's the most exciting part.
so I went through all this, and basically how it works is these structures now. So as an example, a lot of these structures here, like the garrison structures, they're no longer a part of the tech tree, right? So this is also a part of our process of taking things from the tech tree and putting them into like other parts of the game, right? So you no longer have to wait for this to like unlock in a tech tree. It depends on the base, right? So it's almost like a tech tree that's specific to a base, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 types of infrastructure: garrison, command, and support. And I'll walk through some of that later. But here's an example. Here's like an early prototype of how this looks, right? And
That one is very, very early.
oh, that was super early.
Yeah.
There's no real like finished art there. It's all standard art. And here's some of the concept art behind these modifications.
Yeah.
And then finally, here is a table of the infrastructure types, the modifications that are used to advance the tech for that type, and then the actual facilities and structures that can be unlocked, right?
And these will be, just to be clear, these will be manually like placed
Yes.
by players. It's not like it's just gonna like automatically populate. Like you're gonna pick which sector of the bunker that these are spawned in, so you can customize your base kind of however you want.
Yeah, you make these modifications just like you would make a firing port. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
it's
can,
the
like-
same. It's the same system.
So you can mouse wheel and like change the position and everything, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
super cool.
Yeah, we purposely wanted it to be like a player-driven thing, because right now the bunkers are cool, but they're kind of like empty in a lot of cases, right?
Well, they lack an ability to customize them or
Yeah.
do anything. It's like,
Well, that's why.
yeah, exactly.
That's why we're doing this. And a few things that we're going to talk a bit more on. hopefully in the blog or maybe the next stream, is some of the other things that these fortresses are going to grow into. One is the deployment facility that you see there on the right-hand side. That is a capability for you to eventually turn this base into a deployment point on the map,
Yeah.
so players can travel to. And then there is the command center facility, and this one is going to eventually be able to have an impact on the win condition. So along the lines of being able to make a new victory point on the map. So if one side wants to win, they have to get through your super fortress first, essentially.
And that is where it gets really exciting. I think the deployment point alone is really interesting. I think that's being downplayed a little bit, but like having a really sort of strong deployment point, could be pretty crazy. And then on top of that, having a very strong victory point that you determine.
Yes.
Could be. I don't know. I can't even imagine what's going to happen with that.
This is part of us wanting. It's something I know, Matt, that you always talk about. Of how you feel like the win condition is very static.
Yeah.
Right. So this is us trying to take the win condition and make it more of like a player-driven thing, right? So players have a chance to change like the win condition.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also worth noting that because I think there's a bit of assumptions being made in the chat. Of course, they haven't had their hands on it, right? That a lot of this stuff won't be buildable in anything other than concrete.
No, that's not true. A lot of this stuff, a lot of the infrastructure can be built in the first two tiers. I think most of what you see here is actually going to be available in the first two tiers.
Yeah, I think you could probably make the assumption that maybe a storm cannon won't be, but it's
like a dirt storm cannon. It shoots dirt at you, man.
But the point is that like you can make this in a tier 1 trench, probably a lot of like what you're imagining. So, and then you can, if it holds, you can slowly upgrade it. Like yes, it takes 24 hours to dry concrete, of course, but you don't have to build this in concrete. So you don't have to. That's not a prerequisite to start your base.
So we see a lot of players like spending a lot of time in the back line, just slowly building these bases, and we hope that this will give them a lot more content to work on, a lot more sense of like ownership. If you're able to if you're able to build out the largest base on the map and have that as like a victory point, and have all these have a storm cannon there, and having like howitzer garrisons in there, it might be the host of like the final battle in the war, right?
Which think about that Maginot Line. Imagine if it had all this.
Exactly, but they were scraping the barrel.
Yeah.
When they were building it.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot going on there. So.
But they did it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
That's really exciting.
Here's that screenshot, and I think that's it.
That was a really, really, really early mock-up, right?
Yeah. I think you're harping on that map because they're actually working on the real art now.
Yeah, that's why I'm
right behind us, actually.
Yeah.
Literally right now.
We would show you, but
yeah,
it's classified.
Right.
And there's no one here who can declassify it, I don't think. Anyway, I'm actually not signed in as Foxhole game right now, and so I actually can't see. If you guys could tag at Clapfoot when you're asking questions, because I'm silly and I did not log into the right thing, that would be great. Okay, so let us answer some questions. Foxy plays a game. Very simple one. What is the actual benefit of being able to carry wounded soldiers?
Well, you will be able to postpone their death timer or slow it down, bring them to a safe place so that they can be revived without being under fire. Like basically relocate them to a safer location. Relocate them to a safer location.
Relocate them.
Relocate them. Yeah.
It's basically like if instead of having someone respawn, you can not have them die. Yes. and sometimes you're in a really bad spot to bring someone back because there's like gunfire, so you can get in there, grab them, and get them out, which will be helpful, I think. I think the only other way we could really have done that is if you added like if we had like crawling or something, which could be possible as well. So let me ask a question. With limited information about Callahan, all we really know is that he was the Warden's leader at some point. My question is, whom leads the Wardens now in the current timeline? Has Callahan simply turned into a title given to the Warden leader? That's an interesting idea. No, and I'm not going to answer that question. But I wanted you to know that I heard you.
Then why did you pick the question?
Because I was going to follow it up by saying some of those questions are actually answered. You just don't know yet because you haven't found it.
And you're working on this huge lore update, I hear.
Even before that.
Oh.
You remember I had a conversation with you recently about this topic.
Oh, we did,
right?
yes.
It's that's relevant.
Right.
Blur asks, what are the long-term goals of tech tree implementation, and what kind of short-term changes will we see?
I think a part of it was answered on the stream is that we'd like to break certain parts out of it and not be driven by this linear mechanic, right? But we have to be careful about it because certain things, if it's like a defensive thing, then it is easier to break things out. If it's an offensive thing, something like tanks is a lot more challenging because if one side has access to tanks before the other side, it can be really destabilizing and really snowbally for the war. So you can see the infrastructure mechanic is sort of like the first kind of like test to see how this goes. But I think we would like to try some different things with that, right?
I think I was thinking about this yesterday for some reason. A tech tree in a game like this is really hard in the way that it's implemented in other games, because at a certain point it becomes a democracy, right?
Well, what we
I
found,
find that kind of tricky to manage.
Right. Well, like what we found is that before, when the tech tree was more player driven, it would always like destabilize the war, and then one side would be kind of like demoralized. They might have less players, and then in turn we need a player balance system that increases tech, and it's just sort of like the end result was like, okay, well, why not just have it be the same, right? And so yeah, but I don't think it's that interesting the way it is right now, and I think there's more interesting things we can do, like the infrastructure system.
Yeah, I think that's a really good start, and it should be really interesting to see what else we can do with it in the future. Rojo Mojo asks, will the signs be used in the training course? I think where I can see that being used is to point people in the right direction and then to tell them how to read a sign. Because they won't have the same word counts as the stuff that's currently in the tutorial, which does make it a little tricky. But if we can at least, make it so that the new players know exactly where to go and what to do to get the tutorial, that is probably going to help immensely. And they can be used for smaller things, like when you're walking around, it just sort of shows up. It's like, hey, you can deploy here, or whatever. We could probably do something like that for sure. There's a lot of applications. Actually, that's one of the reasons I really like them, is there's a ton of applications for that. But generally, outside of the tutorial, I think we would like to keep them completely player-driven as well. I don't think you'll see messages by us will typically be like signs that you have to read, as opposed to ones that pop up. And by read, I mean press E to read. Yeti Heavy asks, will we be still able to build rifle garrisons outside of these bunker complexes, or only inside the range of them?
Right now, the plan is that you have to be in range of them. It's always possible that we can break things out to a separate, sort of like a basic set that you can build without them. But I think this is where we're going to start. But I wouldn't get too hung up over it, because these are things that we can tweak fairly easily. And it's just going to require a bunch of like testing to sort of see where things land, right? But the interesting thing is that might sound like a harsh restriction, but the truth is that right now, anytime you see any of these garrisons, there's always a fob there anyways, because you need the fob for the operating post. So it's not really going to be like an added requirement, because instead of that fob there, you probably just will have like a bunker base in its place. So it's really the net difference is that you might have to wait just a really short amount of time for that first tier of structures like the rifle garrisons to become available. So yeah, really, I think it really shouldn't change that much from what players are already doing right now, right? So
Cool. So unsurprisingly, Birdman asks, are there any plans for external factors?
I think I talked to him about that.
That's why I said unsurprisingly.
Yeah, I think we're looking into that. We discussed a lot at the beginning of this year about ways that we can make the wars feel a bit more dynamic, have some more like back and forths. And it's funny because we actually looked back at what happened in like the real World War II and in most wars. Well, first of all, wars are not really fought in a balanced state. It's usually it's never balanced, right? Like one side usually has like the upper hand in one area or like another. But we thought, okay, even if there was a real war in the past and it was like fully balanced, right? Like 100% balance in skill, resources, and everything, right? It would probably snowball the moment that one side stepped foot on the other side, right? And the only way you really reconcile that is with some sort of like an external factor, like in World War II, like things like weather were like an external factor. Things like the U.S. joining the front in Western Europe, that was like an external factor, right? If they hadn't joined, things might have turned out very differently, right? There's all kinds of external factors. If Japan hadn't joined the war, that might have changed the way that the U.S. had thought of things. There was just so many external factors that contributed to the eventual result. And I think that's an area that we're going to take a look at is external factors, but we don't want it to feel like a mechanical thing that's just there to sort of like
no matter what happens, technically it's going to be mechanical, but we wanted to try to make it feel organic.
Exactly, right? Like make it feel like, oh, okay, this is just something that would have happened in a real war, right? So I think that's definitely an area of interest that we're going to be looking into, and hopefully you'll see some of that in the not too distant future.
Cyril asks, is something going to be changed in the component economy with all these new changes and obviously the incoming influx of concrete, trench, and bunker networks?
Yeah, I think we're always looking at the economy there. Even as recent as Update 32, a lot of people didn't notice, but there was a huge boost in the output of mines. Like, it's funny because we buffed these things, and I don't know if anyone even really noticed it, but there was actually a 2x increase during the peak population of, because a lot of people were worried, there's going to be more players, are there enough like resources, but the actual mines were outputting twice as much during those wars, right? So we're always tweaking those things, and I think that, if there is any sort of change in the demands of the economy, we would definitely make adjustments there, just as we have as recently as Update 32, right?
There was one question that I lost, but here it is, from Insane Katrina. Do we have any opinions on the bug that appeared in this most recent update where the player silhouettes are no longer visible? It seems to have created a bit of a stealth combat dynamic.
That should have been fixed on Saturday.
I think it was fixed in a hot fix, right?
It was hot fixed, I believe, Friday or Saturday. Yeah.
But beyond that, how do you feel about it? That it needed to be fixed.
Well,
I think that's kind of our.
I think it should be fixed because in a lot of cases, it's just because your camera can't see the player, right? It's not because you can't actually see the player. I guess I'm confused on what the.
I think because when players were in bushes and stuff, they actually were hidden physically. Whereas
right.
the idea being that our character visibility will reveal them no matter what is in front of them on the camera, right? If the character can see them, then they're visible.
Like they're saying, turning it into more of like an immersive stealth mechanic as opposed to like an explicit one.
Yeah, I think that's generally it. I think it's kind of neat. I mean,
it's kind of cool.
Foxhole was like that for a long time, really. When you used to go into bushes, it just used to hide you.
Yeah.
We changed that because people didn't like it very much, and I think we didn't. It kind of felt weird that you couldn't tell that someone was moving in a bush, right? So, anyway, I'm going to ask 2 more questions, and then we're going to call it a stream. A little short stream today, a little shorter. I mean, it's only 10 minutes, but this is a question that came up kind of in the office recently, so I'm going to ask it. Will we see any wars with a greater neutral territory start?
Most likely not anytime soon, because we find that at least with the current gameplay, the early territory grabs, a lot of times it boils down to like a race. It boils down to the more dominant factors is less on one side had better skill or one side played better, but simply who was able to connect, who has the fastest internet connection, who got through the queues first,
Yeah.
who was able to build a CV and have a CV race, who wins the CV race is sort of the classic term that we use, right? And then the more important, the more of the focus becomes like, oh, well, this side had one town that was literally like a few meters closer than like the other one, and that became like the dominant factor. And once those early the early land grab is done, it tends to be pretty crushing on like morale, right? Especially if it's done within literally the first few like hours of the war. Mm-hmm. I think that's the kind of like instability that is not healthy, and I think it would probably cause really bad swings in morale that would probably like end the war after after like a day or two. So I think we won't see that anytime soon. I think that if there were more things there to mitigate it coming down to like a CV race, then we'd probably be able to do more of that. Like if it came down to, if you weren't able to like rebuild the towns, as an example, I don't know, I'm just like making up like a wild idea, right? Like if you weren't able to rebuild the towns right away and you actually had to like somehow hold it through like PvP or something of that sort for a long time, maybe something like that could work. But the way it is right now, it's like you're there first with your CV, you build it up, and now it's like really hard for the other side to try to get it back, and it's not fair that they were able to get there because the internet connection was faster, right? Like,
so kind of in summary, we don't like the idea that it is a race outside of the confines of the actual game, really.
Well, we don't think it's a fair. We don't think it would be a fair start, right? And
whereas at least if there's like sort of equal holding territory, it's equally fair.
Well, it's less of an emphasis on those other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's still, both sides can get started faster depending on those same factors. But anyway, I'm going to ask one more question. I had it here. MRE Boy, will there be any sort of storage options in the upgrade system?
Okay. So I really want to see that. I really want to see eventually, and this isn't like a feature announcement, so don't say this is coming because it's not. But just sort of like fantasizing at the top of my head, like it would be nice if players can turn these into build like a storage depot or something there. If you could use it to plan like your operations somehow, like an operation stockpile sort of thing, that would be really cool. I think there's a lot of new upgrades we can add. We're planning this system, like I said at the beginning, this is the Trench Warfare Part 3, Update 34 is us rounding the corner of building out systems. But in terms of content, I really like the players to be able to build like a listening post, sort of like the equivalent of like an observation tower into like a high tier bunker. If you're building out like a Maginot Line type thing, there should be like a series of like listening posts, a series of like defenses, storage depots, and like beds and like kitchens and lockers and living quarters and that.
And then storage.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we want to see.
Really
so
I think it's the first realization of like an actual base building system that we've ever put in the game. Whereas in the past, it's been like, you can build walls and then like some boxes, right? This feels a little bit more exciting to me. And I think hooking a lot of stuff into it to encourage it would be really cool. It'd be cool if also it wasn't just limited to like the underground, but if there was other ways we could sort of add to it. But that's not coming. I'm just talking about it as of right now. Cool. So we're gonna call it a day.
Cool.
That is the end of the stream. Mark, do you have any final words?
I do not.
All right. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you have questions, ask the questions in the comments, and HB will answer them. I'm pretty sure that's something he does. Also, if you are watching this on YouTube, you can watch it live on Twitch, twitch.tv/foxholegame. And if you are watching this on Twitch right now, as you are, then go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/foxhole game. Foxhole game.
Foxhole game, I believe.
I don't know. Somebody can post it in the chat. That's fine. We'll figure it out. HB usually points to something, so I'm just going to point, and there'll be a link or something there. I don't know. And I guess I'm going to plug Clapfoot After Dark if you want to hear me, HB, and Max, and sometimes special guests. Last week we had Anthony talk about nonsense every other Wednesday. So next Wednesday is going to be our next one. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but it's just something that we can get together and kind of chat. So come hang out there, twitch.tv/Clapfoot. You can check out previous episodes on youtube.com/Clapfoot.
Cool.
I think that's everything.
That's
okay.
it. See you guys.
Bye, everybody.